Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. This is Finding the Perfect Match, a program brought to you by the Montessori Foundation, an independent school consulting, marketing, and general support organization for families, schools, and school leaders working around the world. And today's topic is a continuation of what we began 2 weeks ago, which was how to conduct a strategic marketing study and develop a marketing plan. And I don't even remember how far we got, but the bottom line is we'll skip quickly through it and continue on down the conversation. Um, my colleague, Sharon Cole, has agreed to be my co-host. And Sharon, I'm going to make you officially co-host so that you can do whatever needs to be done. Hold on. Right, co-host. Perfect. You are now the co-host. And again, I encourage anyone who's with us to feel free, turn on your camera, turn off your microphone, and let's talk. It's okay. And if it takes 3 weeks to get through this, it's okay with me. I must say today is my 80th birthday, and I don't feel a day over 30. And I have continued to go out and deal with the horses and the dogs and all the good stuff that is part of my life. And I'm delighted to be spending this day with you. We're going to have to stop right on time because for some people, they have signed up for a orientation session for the Montessori Family Alliance. Um, and we're going to be doing that at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. So, without any further ado, does anyone have anything? Thank you, Masuka. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. No, Mac, why don't you unmute and tell me the correct way to pronounce it? Is Maksuta? Well, anyway, however the correct way to pronounce your name is, I appreciate the birthday greetings. All right, anyone have anything you want to say or ask before we start with the presentation? Hearing nothing, I will go ahead and start sharing.
Yes, that's how we pronounce my name. It's Maksuda.
Thank you, Maksuda, and I appreciate the kind wishes.
May God bless you.
Thank you. Certainly, I hope he, she, or it will. They, whatever they are. All right, so we began this 2 weeks ago. We were talking about strategic marketing studies and enrollment plans. I was just engaged up to a few minutes before this meeting. I was on with a great school in Atlanta where we were continuing the interviewing process in preparation for us preparing their market study and their enrollment marketing plan. And it's really interesting to do this work. Whether you've got a big school or a little school, we all need to clarify who we are and who would love us for what we are. This is true all over the world. Some of the sayings that we have at the Montessori Foundation are: one, don't sell Montessori, sell your school. Two, remember that a Montessori child can never be replaced. And by the way, if you're running a Christian school or an Islamic school or a prep school, it doesn't matter. I mean, the bottom line is every single school, public or private, faces the same challenge. How do we get parents on board? How do we get more parents to want to be with us? How do we find the right parents who will appreciate what we're doing for their children and will work with us and our teachers, making our teachers happy instead of making them feel threatened or exhausted? So the other thing is when a family leaves, they almost always take two or three friends with them. And so the idea is it's not just filling up your seats every year. Yes, we have to do that, but it's filling it up with the right parents so that they don't break your heart and your teachers' hearts. So our objectives are to, again, quickly explain the idea of a strategic market study and develop an effective enrollment plan for a private school. And we're going to explore the key topics. Hopefully, all of you who are with us, everyone who has signed up for these webinars should have gotten a PDF of this slideshow 2 weeks ago and gotten an article that I wrote on how to do a market study. So if any of this feels old, familiar, and you want to ask questions, please just jump in. I also realize some of you may not have been with us 2 weeks ago. You may not have read any of the stuff I sent, and it's okay. One way of thinking of it is that normally an independent school, especially a small independent school like you, Marlene, doesn't have the budget to waste money. You've got to be pinpoint accurate in finding the right family and getting the right message in front of them. And the problem is that these days, the average person hears so many marketing messages from so many different organizations, they don't even know that you're talking to them. It used to be that we said that people needed to see an ad 8 times before they even knew you were trying to get their attention. Now, there's an exception to that. If you need an obstetrician and you are pregnant for the first time, you are going to be in the market and you're going to be looking for that specific physician. If you lose someone beloved and you need to plan a funeral and you don't have a family funeral home, you're in the market for a funeral home. You will go looking for it. If you're looking for a private school for the first time, you're going to be looking for it. But a lot of times we are reaching families years before they are ready to approach us about their child. And quite often they are first inquiring into schools 7 or 8 months before their child would be ready to start school. So the bottom line is we don't have the money to throw out endless messages. We probably, if you wanted to fill your school for this September and it's now June, unless you have multi-million dollars to spend, you're probably going to be working on dumb luck. Whatever calls you get, whatever clicks you get on your ads, probably are going to be ads that you generated 7 or 8 months ago, and you're simply only seeing the light from those distant stars now. I hope that makes sense. Many times when I'm working with a school that is not familiar with the concept of paid marketing or guerrilla unpaid sort of word of mouth marketing, which most schools think is the right way to advertise, because they always say, well, everyone that we meet says they heard about us from a friend. Well, yeah, that's true. And that is the most powerful form of marketing. The problem is, if you count on that as your only way of getting people, you are probably going to have unfilled seats and you may not be able to keep all your classes running. So chance favors the prepared mind. That's a basic idea that we promote. In addition, I want you to try to imagine that your school has no marketing plan, or you whatever you're doing is really not a very coherent, well-funded plan. Try to imagine that you're in Colorado, you're up at, let's say, 5,000 feet above sea level. It's winter time, and you're looking at an old Civil War steam-driven locomotive that is fired by wood. The tender has got lots of wood. You've got to open the firebox. You got to put wood in. You got to start a fire, and you got to wait because it takes time before the water thaws out, before steam pressure begins to build up, and before you're actually ready to move. When there's enough steam built up, think of this as marketing, because marketing doesn't happen overnight. Just because you throw an ad out there doesn't mean you're instantly going to start seeing movement. It does if you have a big enough budget. If you can saturate TV, radio, print ads, airplanes skywriting overhead. I mean, there are all kinds of things you could do. But unless you've got that kind of budget, you've got to be doing this with a realistic understanding that you're going to work like a dog for the better part of a year before you start to see the first fruit of your labor. So again, with steam locomotive, you've got this old Civil War engine. You've built up steam in the boiler, you throw the throttle, and it's not like a Porsche or some sports car that just instantly goes, from 0 to 60 miles an hour. Instead, it shudders and it gives a chug and it begins to move and it all shakes. And very, very slowly, you build up steam. Now, the good news is once it's going, so long as you have wood to put in the firebox and you keep the fire going, you will continue to move. In fact, it's actually hard to stop. That's the concept. So a market study is based on the theory that you don't have an unlimited budget. You need to be pinpoint accurate. You need to figure out who are you trying to reach and what message will they respond to? How do you help people to see why they should choose your school over all the other excellent schools that they could choose? So we have out there in the market questions like, why do families choose one school over another? In Marlene's market, you've got the excellent DC public schools. You've got great private schools like Beauvoir, National Child Research Center. You've got other Montessori schools. Marlene, who is your competition as you see it today? Marlene?
Um, the French schools
Okay.
and the private schools, the religious schools.
So
A lot of
Jewish
the
day,
parents
Jewish
are
day schools, you're a preschool only, right?
right.
So you're clearly not competing with, Chevy Chase High School,
No.
but any Jewish nursery school, a Christian nursery school, a Quaker school.
Any school that has foreign language in it.
Okay. And do you teach foreign language at your school?
We have French immersion.
You have French immersion. So that at least gives you some of what the other schools have, but clearly families are looking for that. And are you noticing that they have more of it than you have? And in other words, are they choosing them over you? Or does your French immersion program help?
Well, I thought it did up until this year.
So clearly there's something that another school has that leads them to choose that school over your school, right?
Right.
Which goes to the middle column, rejections. What factors are leading families to reject your school and choose another? So the reason why that's important is while people may be reluctant to tell you, and you may be doing your best guess, to the extent that you can figure it out, it may suggest a way that you can begin to rebalance the scales. Have you got any idea why they're rejecting you and choosing the others?
Well, it continues through high school or it continues through middle school. It doesn't stop like we stop, after kindergarten. A lot of
And are you talking about the literal French curriculum school in Washington?
Rochambeau?
What I'm asking is, are you losing families not only to a school that goes through high school, but is it a school that is teaching the French curriculum?
Yes, they want to continue with it.
Okay. So one of the things that you're telling me is in your market, Chevy Chase, you're seeing a lot of families that want French, and they don't just want French language, because a lot of Americans want French language. They want the French curriculum so that they end up with a French diploma. And if they move to France or return to France, their kids will be right in the track to get a pre-university French diploma, right?
Yeah,
That's tough to compete. You can't compete with that.
no,
On the other hand, offering a French immersion program for someone like my family, for example, I mean, when I was a kid, I learned French. In those days, you didn't do Spanish. Today, I would do Spanish, but, French was perceived of as high prestige. It's certainly a great language, great culture. So you clearly cannot fight for French nationals or French national wannabes. They're not your market. They're gonna choose someone else every time. So the trick of market studies is to figure out who in your market would love your school for what you are. And how could you figure that out? Now, by the way, for those of you who are working with Clint Lausch and are doing the Montessori Enrollment Growth Accelerator program, one of the services that comes with that, and by the way, this is a service we also offer to all Montessori Foundation year-round consulting client schools, is we do an annual market study and update your marketing plan. And this works whether you're in Ghana, whether you're in Germany, wherever, it works anywhere. We're working with a school, for example, in southern France right now. And, the rules are the rules. It works in Pakistan. Now, again, you need to understand the local culture. So an American like me may not understand what drives a family in Kenya. On the other hand, what the secret is, we don't need to know everything. What we need to do is help you figure out what's going on. And that's really why we're doing this workshop is any of you, either with or without our help, can do what would normally cost you between $5,000 and $50,000 to do, which is a market study, market analysis, and develop a marketing plan. And the idea of a marketing plan is it's one thing to say, I'm going to put this much dollars into marketing. A marketing plan is all the building blocks and the plan. Like in Montessori, we have a plan, right, for Alyssa? There's a plan. And that's what makes it replicable. It is adaptable. We can do it anywhere. We can do it in an orphanage. We can do it in Ghana. I've done it in townships in South Africa with children who, literally, are coming to school in rubber flip-flops. There is no one place where it can't be done. But you do have to adapt, and you do have to speak the language of the people, because families don't come to you unless they look at you and say, you get me. I feel safe with you. And that's one of the things people are buying is the feeling of, I know what I'm going to get. I only got one life to lead with my kid. I want to make the right choice. And it's all about relationship. Now, you can't change people. A lot of people in Montessori, when they take people on a tour, we do this whole song and dance about Montessori. And I would argue that's not what we want to do. I mean, it's not that we're not hiding we're Montessori school, but unless people, anyone can go on the internet these days and come up with some sense of what Montessori is supposed to be. And there's a pretty good chance they don't really understand it. And that's okay. They don't need to understand it. I don't know how my computer works. What they want to do is satisfy themselves that if I send my kid to your school, Marlene, I'm not going to regret it for the rest of my life. They also want to know, what are you going to do for me? How are you going to make my life better? So using your school, Marlene, just as an example, what you're trying to do is figure out, okay, French immersion worked for a while and may continue to work, but it's certainly not going to work for the people that want the French baccalaureate diploma. So they're not your market. Who is your market? And is there anything other than your French immersion that you're offering them? because you're many things. You only go through preschool or through kindergarten. So right there, that's one thing. You're small. You're in Chevy Chase, and there's not a whole lot of schools in Chevy Chase. And the ones that are there are really, really expensive. Um, there are reasons why people would choose you and have chosen you over the years. And the same thing is true of you, Masuka, of you, Lisa, of Sharon. Every one of us has families that are choosing us for a reason that in their mind makes sense. A market study is an analysis of who do we think we are? Who is it that we think we can serve? Or why would someone serve us or choose us? And who's out there? And is there a disconnect between what they would respond to and what we can deliver? And how do we get their attention? Because we don't have endless money. We have to work smart. Yes, Masuka.
Mr. Tim, we just started a Montessori school in a small town in India. I have been running my schools for quite many years, but now I have come to this small town. And last year, we started this Montessori school for the 3 to 6 year olds, the early childhood period. At that time, we took on a lot of children who were even 5 year olds. We thought they missed out, so we can take them in and help them as much as possible. Now what's happening is this year the parents are not coming in at the 3 to 6 at the 3 year age. They think it's okay to keep the child at home and let them join only at the age of 5 so that they save on the money for the 2 years. So that's getting difficult for us to bring them in at 3 years, to tell them that it's so important for them to be here at that age so that we can prepare them and get them ready. So that's a big issue for us this year. And we are wondering whether we should still take the 5 year olds this year. But we don't want to deprive them again. That's the same, it's like a cycle that's
I mean, first
happening.
you gotta keep the money flowing in, right?
Yes, yes.
So what you're telling me is you can keep your school running, but you're taking in kids you're helping them, but you
Yes,
would help them a lot more if their parents were bringing them to you 2 years younger or younger than that.
yes,
And
yes,
also from their point of view, they're trying to save money.
yes.
Here's
It's
the way
quite
I would think
expensive
of
for
it.
them. Mm.
Right. So your market is made up of families who have kids
Yes,
under the age of 6.
yes,
Uh, you seem to have a good reputation for what you do with the 5 year olds. Those parents are
yes,
probably perfectly happy.
yes,
And you would like to change the population to be more families that would come to you 2 years earlier, right?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So the
that's
first
what
thing,
we're hoping.
you don't want to shame the parents who are making a choice different than what you agreed to.
Yeah, that's
That's
what
the
I've
first.
started doing, it's
Yeah,
sadly.
that doesn't work. Not a good idea because
Yeah.
they're not bad people. They're just trying to solve a problem. And their
Yes,
problem is, why should I pay for 3 years when I can only pay for 1 year?
yes. True.
Now, what you want to do is to attract more families who understand the value of educating from the youngest possible age.
Yes,
And the family has already got a 5 year old and is on your doorstep. You're not going to change them.
yes,
So what you want to do is you're going to keep taking in families who are a good fit, who present
yes,
with a 5 year old, but you
yes,
need to find families with young kids
yes,
and try to help them to understand why, if they really love their child, they will bite the bullet, make an investment, even when they could keep them at home. And the way you
yes.
usually do this is the same way you challenge a teenager. You say
Okay.
something like, Felissa, I've got a challenge for you, and this is really, really hard. I don't know if you and your friends can do this, but if you're up to it, you choose to accept this assignment. And so you go out there with the families of 3 year olds and you say, look, I know where you live. I've been there. You really are saying to yourself, if I could give my child 1 year of tuition and have that pay off, that's what I want to do. And because I can stay home with them. And you say, I get it, I get it, I get it. But what I want you to know is if you want your child to be like this at age 6, the way to do that is to start this kind of program when they're 3 or younger, because the younger they are when they start and the longer they stay, the bigger the impact.
Yeah.
This is what we can do for you. And let me show you the proof. And so it's not easy. I don't want to make it sound
It's not
easy.
easy.
You've got to win,
Yes.
you got to win their trust.
Yes, yes. They're like, why
But
do we
if
waste
you,
money on very little children? They say we keep the money for their colleges. That's what they say. Why waste money on very little children is their understanding. Yeah.
because if we do the right thing, your child will become uniquely gifted or will display the unique gift that God gave them when they were conceived. And by the time they are ready for college, you won't need to pay for it. The colleges will be paying for them.
Yes.
I have a young graduate of one of our schools, Ben Bogard, who, when he started with us at 4, he announced to his mother, his father, and to me that he wanted to grow up and be a electrical and computer engineer, and he was going to go to MIT because he had heard about MIT. So this kid stayed with us all the way up through the ages. And when he was like 10, mom took it. She was a public school teacher. This is the kind of kid who, by the time he was 10, was doing taxes for the family and telling her when she could afford to retire. Really quite the kid. Anyway, Ben went up to Boston and he went to MIT and he came back with the MIT sweatshirt. This was at Newgate in Sarasota, Florida, and steaming hot. And he's wearing a huge MIT sweatshirt, too big for his little body. Anyway, he finally got to the point where he's ready to apply to MIT, and he gets in MIT and rejects them because MIT was only willing to give him a 40% scholarship. Georgia Tech paid him $35,000 to attend. So he not only didn't have any tuition, his room, his board, and a $35,000 fee was paid to him every year to attend that school. And he got through in 2.5 years. That kind of story told to a parent like the ones you're talking about, understanding that around the world, there's a reason why families, rich and poor, choose Montessori. And some people think about it in terms of economics. Some people think about it in terms of building a better human being, a better soul.
Yes.
Any way you look at it, because there are a lot of ways to understand Montessori. The younger you start and the longer you stay, the more powerful it is likely to be in your life.
Yes.
Now, that message will be understood by some parents,
Yes.
won't be understood by some others.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about laying a strong foundation. That's what we are talking about with them. Yes.
Yeah, and you're going to kiss a lot of frogs, Masuka, and you just have to believe that in your small town, there are mothers and fathers who will hear your message and will understand it. In the meantime, you will love the families that come before you and do the best you can for them. But you keep your message going with these other families. You just counter their arguments. You say, yes, 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 but let me tell you another way of looking at this. And I'm not going to tell you have to do something you don't want to do, but I'm telling you, if you trust me, you will never regret it.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for bearing up and sparing your time for me. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I don't know. What city are you working in, Masuka?
I'm sorry?
You're in India now?
I'm in India. Yes, I'm in India.
And what time is it there now? Are you about 15 and a half hours?
It's 11 p.m. Yes.
Thank you for staying up, my friend.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely.
We
Thank you,
are a
sir.
global community.
Yes, yes, very much. I have
Anyone
been
else
following
want to
you
jump?
for 30 years now.
We're happy to see you every time. Anyone else want to jump in before I go back to the slideshow? No? Okay. Then let me start sharing again. Gotta find the right thing to go to. Where is it? Huh. Canva, here it is. All right. So we talked about choices. Why do families choose a specific school? Like, why do they choose you over someone else? Rejections. Why do they sometimes reject you and choose something else? And what are the alternatives that families considered? We just, with Marlene, and with you, Masuka, we were just talking about some of those choices that people make. So sometimes they choose to keep their kids home. Sometimes they choose a different school compared to you. So last 2 weeks ago, we started on this 10-section framework, which is a way of thinking of marketing studies. These are 10 essential sections in a strategic analysis of your market. So a marketing study will always begin with some kind of executive study. This is a snapshot of all of the important things that were discovered in preparing the marketing plan. Now, from the point of view of key components, that's sort of who is your school? What are you all about? Why does someone choose you at all? What are you trying to achieve in terms of your enrollment campaign? Like in your case, Masuka, you're trying to get 3-year-olds instead of 5-year-olds because you are getting 5-year-olds. What you need is 3-year-olds. And Marlene, in your case, I think what you're trying to do is just get more kids in general, preferably at age 3, since you stop like Masuka at age 6, you want to get them as young as you can. But you don't want families that only come for 1 year because that makes it very difficult to do quality Montessori. And I would suggest it probably makes it difficult in any school. The other thing you want to do is think about what are your critical initiatives and targets that align with your mission. For example, Masuki, you're trying to find families in your town in India who are willing to think about investing in education at age 3 and 4 when they're saying to themselves, well, why should I pay for 3 and 4 when I can do babysitting at home? So clearly, you've got to convince them that if you go to our school, we're not going to be babysitting. Yeah, you can do babysitting. We're not doing babysitting. By the way, my wife Joyce would probably say there's another thing that people need, which is there are parents in the world who are lovely parents, but if their kids don't get into school, they're going to drive them crazy. Um, the kids are too bright, they're too active, they need friends, they need something more than what the family can do at home. Now, again, there are plenty of kids that are very happy at home. There are lots of families that choose to homeschool their children. Our goal is to find families who are thinking the way we would like them to think. We can't change them. All we can do is find families that think the way we have in mind. This is a big part of a market study. Who are you? I think the average school that I meet, whether you're Quaker, whether you're Christian, whether you're Jewish day school, whether you're Montessori, whether you're Waldorf, I'm sorry. I don't find the average school really knows who they are. They think they do because they say, well, I'm a Montessori school. I think that can be a lot of different things to different people. It's like saying I'm a Christian or a Democrat or a Republican. I'm a man or a woman. There are a lot of different ways to be Christian, a lot of different ways to be Jewish, a lot of different ways to be Montessori. What is your school's unique identity? Now, there are a lot of things that go into that. One of them is where you're located. If you're located, in a small facility in, let's say, Chevy Chase, Maryland, like Marlene, that's part of your identity. You're going to attract families who happen to live there or for whom that's a really convenient location on the way to work. But Chevy Chase is a very tight-knit community. Schools and businesses that happen to be in that particular town have a different character, a different identity than schools that are located in, let's say, Montgomery County, Maryland. What is your identity? One of it is your facility, your location, your mission. Are you a Montessori school? Are you an AMI Montessori school? Are you a non-affiliated Montessori school? Are you a bilingual Montessori school? Are you in a French immersion Montessori? There are a lot of different ways. Tuition is another thing. It's one thing if you're charging $1,000 a month or $10,000 for a school year, two-term enrollment, or $12,000 a year. It's another thing if you're charging 24,000 or 36,000. I think if you went to my alma mater, the Berry School, we're probably up into the 40s, as I recall. So again, you got to figure out what makes you different. The more expensive you are, the more you're going to affect who will approach you for admissions. There are some families that will be turned off and say, well, you know, there's no way I can afford $40,000 tuition. There are other families who would be turned on. It's really important to understand how every single thing you do, including the colors on your website, whether or not you have a brochure, what your logo is. How many Montessori schools have some silly little logo as opposed to something that would be just as appealing if you someday decided to expand up to high school? Does your logo, your color, your website, your brochure, the sign at the front of your school, does it convey one message or another message? Are you babysitting, or does it look like a real school? So the idea is that this is really important, knowing what your identity is. Before I go on, anyone have anything that they want to ask or say? Not hearing anyone interrupting, I'll keep going. So, what differentiates you from your competition, and what value do you bring to the table? So, for example, you have something or some things, plural, that are unique. What makes your school stand out? What are the unique programs, unique values, unique educational approaches that define you? For example, Spramani Elam is a Montessori educator in San Diego, California, who has a program called Montessori Art, which is so superior to most schools' art programs that I cannot recommend it enough. Now, that doesn't mean you're an art school, but high quality art, as opposed to what most schools do, and art that is not dependent on a single teacher who, if she were to retire, that art program would go up in smoke. Anything that's replicable and sustainable and highly attractive can be part of what gives your school unique value. And what is the value proposition? How will you change their lives? Because they don't come to you because you're Montessori. They come to you because they believe that if they choose you in some way, shape, or form, their life will change for the better. Now, I want you to think about that. Every single thing that people buy, in some way, shape, or form, there is a value that leads people to spend money. When you go to a restaurant, maybe you're getting food that you don't know how to prepare. Maybe you're getting food that tastes better than what you can do. Or maybe you're just getting pampered. You're going to a restaurant and you don't have to cook, you don't have to clean up. And it just feels nice. Why do people go on vacation? My home is more comfortable than most hotels. Why would anyone go away? And the answer is it's a brain reset. I can leave my troubles behind. I can relax. Someone will take care of me. I can indulge myself. Why does anyone go to Starbucks and pay $5 for a freaking cup of coffee? Because in their minds, they're getting something out of it. Now, again, it's a lifestyle product. That concept's important. You got to really, in doing a market study, you have to do a deep, deep dive into the community in which you live. And as Masuka has taught us, it doesn't matter if you're in a small town or a big town. It doesn't matter whether you're in India or if in Germany or if in Bolivia. Geography is everything. Where do people live? What is the affluence of the people in that area? Are there children in that area? I mean, if you happen to build a school in an area where almost no one has any children, or no one can afford your school, you better have somebody who can pay the bills who will keep your school running, because the market is pretty much defined by who lives within a reasonable driving distance of where your school is. The more you understand this, and the more you're paying attention to not only sort of anecdotal memory, but hard data. So, for example, there are many neighborhoods that were great, and over time, the people who live there, their kids grow up, they go to high school, they go to college, and the neighborhood gets older. There are fewer and fewer children, and the enrollment in the schools in that neighborhood goes down. By the way, that's one of the reasons why we recommend that schools not name themselves over the city or the neighborhood in which they live, because you may have to get up and move. So if you've been known as Chevy Chase Montessori, it could become a problem someday. Now, it's okay as long as you can stay in the general Chevy Chase area. But if you are on Park Road and you call yourself Park Road Christian and you have to move to another street, you've got a problem. You spent years getting known as Park Road Christian. So you need to develop a marketing plan. In general, the time to begin working on next year's enrollment is no later than August. That's when all the strategies that you put together months before August, you begin to implement. In other words, you begin to advertise in August for an enrollment that will actually join you typically in August or September a year from now. The actual open house or tours or whatever you want to do usually begins on a certain date. Again, different schools, different answers. The key message here is not that you need to follow this particular sequence, but that you develop a plan. That's the point. What is your plan of what are you going to do when? Now, this is a very, very simple marketing plan, a calendar, because in reality, in the month of August, you're going to be doing probably 100 different things. You're going to be firing off ads. You're going to be putting up posters. You're going to be making visits to realtors and the pediatrician. You're going to do lots of stuff. So whatever you're going to do, it gets put into a calendar. So you're not asking myself, kind of anecdotally, I don't know, what do you want to do? You got to have a plan. Lay it out in writing. You got to think about your audience. What kind of people are you dealing with? That includes another way of saying this is who would love you for what you are. For example, if your school costs a lot of money and you keep attracting families that have 4 kids, there's a pretty good chance that the only way that family is going to choose you is either they're very, very affluent and they can afford it, or those kids are going to go through your school in a cycle and they'll stay for a couple of years and then leave you so the next one can come in. So again, that's not wrong or right. It's just knowing what you're dealing with. If your goal is to get kids to join you and stay up through high school or middle school or elementary, then that is not your friend. You need to think about, what do you need? If people cannot afford you and you've already given out all the financial aid you can, as much as it may hurt you, you got to find families that can afford you. And if you want families to love you and the families that you're meeting don't love you, you got to figure out, well, who would love you? What about you, your school, would attract anyone? And how can we spotlight that so that the right families know, hey, there's a school in town that does that? So the point is that the more you know about your audience and the more you know about you, the better the chance is that you can make every single message be pinpoint accurate so that you tailor your message and all of your outreach efforts in a way that actually works. Whoops, I think I went too fast. One of the things you got to look at is, do you have families who can afford you? You call that ability to afford, and understanding what their financial capabilities are is important, because you're not going to get anywhere if people can't afford you unless you've got government or some other subsidy that's helping you to keep the lights on. If you're running a private school, it is no different than any other business, and you need people who can afford what you're selling. The only alternative to that is to cut the cost of operating, which, by the way, is what a lot of schools have been doing. They've been underpaying their teachers, who actually pay the price because the parents can't afford the school. Now, I think it's horrible that in our country, people have to pay out of their own pocket for a lot of things, whether it's medicine or education. There's a big difference between believing that a country like ours, and that's whether it's the United States or like Masuka, India, ideally your country would choose to invest in the next generation. There's a big difference between state funding of education and state control of education. So, in other words, government schools are not necessarily bad, but they are designed to be whatever is politically sellable. You can't do something in a government school that government ministers or other politicians don't feel okay about. And typically, what they're going to decide is what they think is important and the way they want it taught. And that may or may not fit with what you as a family think is true. So the idea of choice in education is that you as a family can choose the school that you think is the right fit for your family and for your child. And ideally, that money is paid for by the government. That's called the voucher system. Now, that is not the way it works in most of the United States and in most of the world. So those families who can afford it, they get the schools that they want. It's not fair. I don't agree with it. On the other hand, I would rather accept the reality and deal with it than simply ignore it and be angry and say, well, if they won't support the government schools, then the heck with them. The bottom line is, just because it's owned by the government, people don't have to pay for it, doesn't mean it's right for everybody. So we have to understand our family's personas. We've got to develop, what does the ideal parent look like? And I would suggest for a lot of us, it is not a family with 5 kids. It is probably a family that, the family appreciates what education is. They may be older parents. There may be grandparents in the picture who are paying the bills for the tuition. I don't know. You got to figure out, who would your ideal parent be, because that's who you're speaking to. And we've got to figure out, what kind of parents are they? Are they high achievement parents? Are they families that are looking for emotional well-being and kids that are going to be happy? Are they looking for families that just really want a really joyful childhood? I mean, it's not necessarily wellness as much as, I want my kid to get dirty and to learn by having to solve problems in the real world, more of the outward bound kind of parent. There's no wrong answer. And we've really got to think about what drives these parents. Are they independent, like they really want kids who are self-directed and think outside of the box, think for themselves? Are they looking for families that reflect their own values? Many people choose, Quaker schools or Jewish or Christian schools or whatever because of their values. Are are we creating community? For a lot of schools, it's the idea of we have a relationship that keeps people enrolled in our school. We got to look at the competition, because if we don't understand who that is and why people choose it, we're not going to get anywhere. So again, this is all part of developing your market study. And if it feels, by the way, overwhelming, this is big stuff. Most people don't want to really do their own market study and develop their own market plan. They want to pay someone to do it, and it's worth it, if only to confirm what you think is true. Because a lot of times people don't know how to get the true numbers. And if you try to start a business and there is not a big enough market to support it, you're going to suffer. So you look at what's called a competitive analysis overview, which is, what's your competitor? Who are your direct competitors? What are their strengths and weaknesses? You want to look at, how do they enroll kids and what's their tuition? You look at the alternative, which are like indirect competitors, what makes them unique. The bottom line is you need to really know what's out there in your community. And this ends up with a marketing review, which is analyzing their marketing strategies, looking at what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses that impact your own school's way of positioning yourself in your market. And you need to develop a clear message that distinguishes your school from all the other schools that are around. Now, again, there's always going to be schools that are sexier than your school, richer than your school, more appealing than your school. The bottom line is, don't worry about it. What you're looking for is you just need enough families who will choose you for the right reasons. And you're going to lose plenty of great families who you wish would love you, but they won't love you. And it's okay. So understanding the way you are perceived is absolutely crucial. If you don't know what the local people think of your school and how they talk about you, you're not going to really be able to do much. You've got to understand, how are you coming across in the market? So again, you have what the current way of being perceived is versus what you would like people to think of when they think of your school. You want to change the way they think of you if there's a confused impression that people have, and you're trying to shape the conversation about your school. Again, you have to differentiate yourself. There's a lot of ways to do it. One way is what makes us different. We're innovative, unique programs that set your school apart. You can talk about strong relationships, happy children, children who love the school. They can't wait to get up every morning. Families that think the school is the cat's meow. All of these are differentiation strategies. You do have to understand something that Clint always talks about, which is the enrollment journey, the way a family first learns about your school and all the different steps that they take, what's called the enrollment funnel or the enrollment journey or the admissions journey. That is really, really important, because you got to look at what happens from the first time they hear your name all the way until they actually shaking your hand, sign the contract, pay the enrollment, and they're part of your school. And then, by the way, a new journey starts, which is the onboarding and the becoming part of your school community. The point is, you got to break that down step by step and understand what happens from the first time they hear your name until they make the choice. Yes, I'm going to go to this school. So you want to be paying attention to the actual metrics. Do not rely on impressions or sort of anecdotal memory. You need to be looking at hard data. One of the data is the percentage of initial inquiries to the number of people who actually sign up for a tour and show up and do the tour. The next thing you look at is how many people go on a tour and then apply. I don't have a graph for that. And another is from all the people that apply, how many people are offered admission? And of those people, what's the percentage who actually accept admission and enroll in your school? Those are examples. So, how many calls are you getting a day? I would argue you want about 30 to 40 calls a day year round. And I know that sounds crazy. And I know you don't have a way to deal with 40 to 50 calls a day. And many of you use answering machines, and I recommend strongly don't use answering machines. People want to know that when they call their child's school, they're going to get through within the first 3 rings to a real human being. And again, you may not be able to do any of these things. I'm just telling you what is best practice. You want to look at the bottlenecks because there usually are bottlenecks. And the way you can tell them is, we're getting a lot of people applying and they're signing up for tours, but they're not showing up. Or getting a lot of people who are clicking on our ad, but they're not signing up for a tour. They're not, we try to call them back and they don't even answer. So those are all bottlenecks. Then you start looking at your actual marketing strategy, the written plan for marketing. And again, you're going to do a lot of these days, you're probably going to do a lot of digital marketing. And that includes search engine optimization on your website, the use of social media. You're probably going to do email, which, by the way, most people ignore email, but still, you got to do it. You want to look at what's called content marketing. Those are things you post on LinkedIn or Facebook or you send out by email. Like some of you read my weekend read that I send out every Friday, an article that I've written for you for that week that I want to share that I hope you'll enjoy and just invite you to do it. That's the same thing I would do if I were talking to parents. And then you want to look at online advertising, which for the most part is going to be Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google advertising. I mean, there's no wrong answer, TikTok, but the bottom line is you need to do it and it needs to be effective. And you really want to explore all the different strategies for using digital marketing. Not everyone's really good at this stuff. So if you aren't good at it, trust me, pay someone to do it for you. That's what I did all these years. And I'm a great believer that there are ad agencies in the world for a reason. They are people providing a service to make the phone ring. So there are lots of channels that you can get to, community channels, traditional channels, events. You can have people refer families. You can do print marketing, community engagement. I mean, we can talk forever about all the different things you can do. And that's probably going to be next week where I talk about what can you be doing between now and September to keep your families engaged. And that's going to include a lot of these channels that you might also use to get someone to apply. And we're running out of time. So I'm going to stop there and say that what's left is you're going to develop a 1-year marketing plan because you're probably going to do 1 year at a time. You're also going to want to have a sense of what are you going to do over the next 5 years. So with that in mind, I've got to call it quits because I've got a bunch of people lined up who want to learn about the Montessori Family Alliance. And if you don't already know about the Montessori Family Alliance, I really, really, really encourage you go to montessori.org. You'll see a menu that says Montessori Family Alliance. Sign up for a free trial account. Meet my friend Abigail. See if you don't fall in love. It's not going to just solve every problem in the world, but if you keep one family 1 year longer because of that, it will have been worth every single penny you spent. And it's pretty darn cheap. Anyway, long and short, thanks everyone for being here. I wish I had more time. Wish me a happy birthday. And I will see you hopefully on Thursday. And if not, and by the way, on Thursday, we're talking about marketing. No, we're doing strategic planning. So again, if you can join us at the same time on Thursday, and if not, we'll see you hopefully next week. Felissa, always good to see you. Hi, Funky. Good to see you.
Happy birthday. Good to see you.
Thanks,
Yes.
pal. All right, I'm going to get off because I got to go to this next meeting. I will see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.